This tunnel led me back to the 1800s. There are strange rules to follow. The entrance beneath the bridge. They say some paths should never be walked. Some doors, once opened, don't just swing closed. They vanish. I never believed any of that. I thought the stories were just campfire tales meant to keep kids out of dangerous places. But that was before I found tunnel. A tunnel hidden beneath a crumbling bridge on the outskirts of town. One that shouldn't exist. I walked in looking for a shortcut. I came out in the year 1847. And the worst part, there are rules. Very strange rules. And if you break them, something follows. The day it happened, it had rained for hours. Cold, persistent, slanted rain that soaked through my hoodie and jeans as I hiked along the forgotten trail near Harrow Creek. The town was asleep, old and worn down like the bones of something long dead. My phone's GPS had stopped working an hour earlier, leaving me with only the vague directions I'd taken from an ancient message board. If you follow the dried-up canal and reach the stone bridge, you'll find it. Look beneath. I should have turned back when I saw the bridge. It was half collapsed, overgrown with ivy and moss, the mortar crumbling like stale bread. No one had crossed it in decades, maybe longer, but something drew me to it. Curiosity, or maybe something worse. Underneath, where the shadow swallowed the light, I saw it, an arched tunnel, perfectly circular, carved into the hill behind the bridge. It was too clean, too deliberate. My breath misted as I crouched. The opening was just wide enough for a person to crawl through. The walls were stone, wet to the touch, covered in strange etchings I didn't recognize. I clicked on my flashlight, the beam piercing into the dark like a finger into old wounds. Then I crawled inside. The air changed immediately. The sound of the rain vanished. It was dead silent, like I'd dropped below the earth into a tomb. I kept crawling, ignoring the growing pressure in my chest. My light flickered, once, twice, then it stabilized. After what felt like 10 minutes, the tunnel began to widen. I could finally stand. The ground beneath me wasn't mud or stone anymore. It was packed dirt. And when I looked behind me, the tunnel mouth was gone. Just solid wall. No entrance. No exit. I spun around, panicked, and found myself in what looked like a narrow alley. Brick walls on either side. Flickering gas lamps mounted in iron sconces. The air smelled like coal smoke and sewage. My phone read no signal. The time frozen at 3:04 p.m. I stepped out into the open and was met by a scene ripped straight from a history book. Horse-drawn carriages rattled across cobbled streets. Women in bonnets and layered skirts shuffled past, casting wary glances at my clothes. Men in top hats and dusty coats spoke in clipped, formal tones. There were no traffic lights, no signs of electricity, just the rhythmic clang of a distant blacksmith and the scent of smoke and iron. I was in the past, somehow impossibly in the past, the stranger with the rules. I wandered for what felt like hours, my modern shoes echoing on the stone streets. No one approached me, but everyone noticed. I was an outsider, and I felt it in every glance, every whispered conversation behind closed shutters. Then I saw him, an old man leaning against a crooked lamppost near the town square. His coat was patched, his boots scuffed, and his eyes, they were milky and pale, like he hadn't truly seen anything in years. "You're new," he croaked, voice dry as parchment. "Did the tunnel bring you?" I froze. "You know about it." He chuckled, hollow and wet. "Oh, they all do, but not many come back. You've entered a borrowed time, son. A cursed sliver of history that ain't meant to be seen." "I didn't mean to," I said. I need to find my way back." The old man leaned closer, breath sour. "Then you need to follow the rules. Don't question them. Don't break them. And whatever you do, When the church bell rings thrice at midnight, hide. He shoved a scrap of paper into my hand and walked off into the fog. I opened it, hand shaking. The paper was yellowed and brittle, but the ink was fresh. The rules. Rule number 1. Do not speak to the girl in white after sundown. She is not what she seems. Rule number 2. If someone knocks on your door 3 times, don't answer. Not even once. Rule number 3. Avoid mirrors after dark. Your reflection is not your own. Rule number 4. When a town square fills with silence, go indoors immediately. Rule number 5. If the church bell rings 3 times at midnight, hide. Do not look out the window. Do not pray. Do not breathe loudly. Just hide. I stare at the rules, my mouth dry. This couldn't be real. This was some kind of elaborate prank or immersive theater or a scream cut through the square. A real, bone-chilling scream. I turned in time to see a woman sprinting down the street, her hair loose and wild, eyes filled with terror. She ran into a building and slammed the door shut behind her. All around, townsfolk shuttered windows and bolted doors. In seconds, the square was empty. Dead, silent. The gas lamps flickered. A cold breeze swept through the air, carrying with it the smell of something rotten. I remembered Rule 4. When the town square fills with silence, go indoors immediately. I didn't have time to think. I darted into the nearest open doorway and closed it behind me. The building was dimly lit, a musty apothecary with rows of glass jars and faded labels. An old woman sat behind the counter, knitting by candlelight. "You're lucky," she said without looking up. "It almost had you." "What is it?" I asked. She looked at me then, eyes dark, hollow, like the tunnels I crawled through. "The Watcher. It hunts the noise. When a town goes quiet, it listens. If it hears you breathing, it will take you." I stood frozen, heart thudding. The woman pointed to the back room. "There's a cot. You'll sleep here tonight. Don't leave, no matter what you hear." I obeyed. The girl in white. At midnight, the church bell rang once, then twice. My blood ran cold as the third bell echoed through the streets like a thunderclap. From the window, I heard footsteps, not boots, bare feet on cobblestone. A knock, then another, then a third. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. The door didn't open, but a whisper slipped through the cracks. "Won't you let me in? I'm so cold." I turned away, eyes clenched shut. The whisper was soft, childlike, but beneath it was something else, something ancient. Then silence. Morning. I woke to the sound of birds and the scent of dried herbs. The sun had risen, and the world had resumed. The apothecary was gone. The woman, the jars, everything. The store was boarded up, the wood warped with age. Dust covered every surface. I kicked the door open and stepped outside. The town square was lively again, as if nothing had happened. But something had happened. I wasn't just stuck in the past. I was stuck in a pocket of time. A haunted echo of 1847, filled with phantoms and predators that wore human faces. And worse, I knew the tunnel wouldn't let me leave until I followed all the rules or broke them, which meant I had to choose carefully, because in this place, choices meant survival or death. The girl who wasn't human. I thought surviving the first night meant I was safe, that if I obeyed the rules, I'd find my way out. But Harrowsend doesn't work that way. This town is alive in the worst possible way, shifting, watching, testing me. There's something waiting beneath its cracked cobblestones and rotting rooftops. And last night, it knocked on the door wearing the voice of a little girl. Tonight, she came back. This time, she knew my name. The morning light in Harrowsend wasn't warm. It was pale, like light filtered through sickness. I stood in the middle of the town square, watching the townsfolk go about their business, faces blank, eyes sunken, movements mechanical. They didn't acknowledge me, not like before. It was like I was less real today. Fading. I unfolded the slip of paper again. The rules. I read them over for the 10th time, trying to burn them into my mind. But one kept clawing at me more than the others. 1. Do not speak to the girl in white after sundown. She is not what she seems. I hadn't seen her yet, not fully. Just heard her voice behind the door the night before. But something told me it wouldn't stay that way. I needed answers. And fast. The clockmaker. I wandered the streets until I found a crooked little shop with faded lettering. Whitlock's timepieces and curios. The door creaked open to reveal a narrow space packed with antique clocks, brass gears, and the smell of burning oil. In the far corner, a man hunched over a workbench, tinkering with a delicate pocket watch. His skin was sallow, his hands blackened with soot and oil. I was wondering when you'd come, he said without looking up. Do you know how to get out? I asked. He chuckled. Out? There is no out. There's only through. I stepped closer. What does that mean? He turned then. His left eye was missing, replaced with a small brass gear that ticked in rhythm with the clocks. You follow the rules to stay alive. You break one, and the town notices. But there's another set of rules, the ones they don't write down. The older rules, and they're buried in the places no one goes. He slid a small envelope across the counter. You want to escape? Find the bell tower. Climb it before the next tolling. But beware, the girl in white always lingers near the base. I opened the envelope. Inside was a crude map of the town, drawn in faded ink. The bell tower stood on the northern edge, past the baker's row and the cemetery. An X marked its foundation. As I turned to leave, he said one last thing. Don't look her face. Whatever you do, the girl returns. I waited until dusk before heading toward the bell tower. The gas lamps lit the streets with their sickly glow, casting long shadows that didn't always match the shapes that made them. The townsfolk disappeared behind closed doors. Shutters slammed. The silence returned like a tide. My footsteps echoed as I crossed the cracked cobbles and followed the map's jagged path. Every corner I turned, I felt her watching. I didn't hear anything, not at first. Then the whisper, Daniel. My heart stopped. I hadn't told anyone my name. Come out. I want to see you. Her voice was wrong. Too sweet, too smooth, like honey poured over glass shards. I didn't respond. I didn't look. But then, just before I reached the cemetery gates, I saw her. A child-sized figure in a tattered white gown, standing motionless in the center of the road. Her feet were bare. Her hands hung limp at her sides. Her head tilted just slightly, like she was listening. No breath, no blink. And I knew she was waiting for me to speak. I stepped back slowly, heart hammering in my throat. The street behind me changed. The buildings were different, newer, cleaner, but older at the same time, like time folded in on itself. The girl didn't move. Then she raised one hand and pointed to the church tower behind me. You're not supposed to be here, she whispered. I ran. The bell tower. The bell tower loomed at the end of a narrow street, wrapped in dead vines and shadow. The iron gate at its base groaned open when I pushed, and I climbed the spiral stairs two at a time. The groans and creaks of ancient wood beneath my feet. Halfway up, I paused, gasping. I looked down. She was on the stairs, 3 flights below, standing, silent. I kept climbing. When I reached the top, I found the bell itself, massive, cracked, green with age. And on the floor below it, another note. This one wasn't handwritten. It was carved directly into the stone. To leave this place, blood must be paid. Past and present, life and name. But the rules cannot be broken, or the shadows will claim you. Beneath the inscription was a small dagger, rusted and ancient. Then I heard it. The first bell, midnight, the thrice tolling bell. The second bell echoed through the hollow chamber. I turned toward the stairs. She was standing in the doorway now. Closer. The third bell rang, and the tower went black. I couldn't move, couldn't scream. Her face was inches from mine. I saw the shape of it in the dark, and I realized she had no eyes, just empty sockets, seeping shadows. "I can help you leave," she whispered, her breath freezing on my skin. "But not for free." Her hands touched my face. Cold, wet. They smelled like grave dirt and rotting flowers. "You can't survive both timelines," she said. "One must end. A deal with darkness." She backed away slowly, vanishing into the dark like mist. When I could move again, I was alone. The stars outside the cracked window were too bright, too still. Time here didn't tick, it watched. I took the dagger, hands shaking, and made a shallow cut across my palm. Blood dripped onto the stone floor. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a shape began to glow beneath my feet. A sigil, ancient and pulsing red. The bell rang once more. A fourth toll, but there were only supposed to be 3. I stumbled down the stairs, blood trailing behind me. The town below had changed. The streets twisted, buildings warped. Fire burned in the distance. The sky pulsed like a wound. I broke a rule. I looked at her face. Now the town knows. And it's changing. She isn't just part of the rules. She writes them. And tonight, she whispered one more thing. "You can't go back, but you can bring others here." The town beneath the town. I broke the rule. I looked at her face. And now, Harrow's End is no longer pretending to be a town. It's alive, shifting, watching, changing its shape to trap me here. But the worst part? I'm starting to forget where I came from. My memories are bleeding into this place. And the more I remember about Harrow, the more it remembers me. Last night, the streets folded into themselves, and I found a door that shouldn't exist. It led underground, and beneath the cobbled streets, this town hides its real face. The ground beneath my feet didn't feel like stone anymore. It felt like skin, thin, stretched, pulsing with heat. My shoes stuck slightly as I walked, each step peeling away with a sickening squelch. The tunnel entrance had been hidden behind the bell tower, down a narrow alley that hadn't existed the day before. A slanted wooden door, half rotted and chained shut. But when I passed it this morning, the chains are gone. The door hung open, waiting. I should have turned around. I should have run, but I didn't. Descent. The steps spiraled downward, much farther than any cellar had a right to go. There were no torches, no lights, yet everything was faintly visible, as if the darkness had its own eyes, letting me see only what it wanted me to see. The deeper I went, the colder it got. My breath came out in thick plumes, curling toward the ceiling and disappearing. After what felt like an hour, I emerged into a cavernous space. It was a mirror of the town above. Same layout, same buildings, but all wrong. The structures were made of bone and sinew. The windows wet black ichor. And the people, they weren't people. They moved like marionettes with broken strings, limbs twitching, jaws unhinged, eyes missing. One of them turned toward me, sniffed the air, and shrieked like a dying animal. That's when I ran. The hollow people. I ducked into what looked like the hollowed-out remains of the tavern from above. Inside, the walls pulsed gently, like a beating heart. The furniture was fused to the floor, grown, not built. And on the table sat something I couldn't ignore. Another note. This one was burned into flesh-like parchment, the ink a deep red. New rule: do not speak your own name aloud. It belongs to the town now. Below the note, a small mirror had been placed. When I looked into it, my reflection stared back, but its eyes bled. I backed away. And then I heard her again, the girl in white. She was below me this time, laughing, humming. Her voice echoed through the floorboards, as if they were paper thin. I was no longer above ground. I was in her world, the eye on the wall. I found the exit of the tavern and bolted into what used to be the schoolhouse. Inside, the desks were warped bone. The chalkboard dripped tar. And at the front of the room, scrawled in what I knew wasn't chalk, "You've seen too much. The old rules are unraveling." She is rewriting them. Suddenly, the wall behind me breathed. I turned and saw it. An eye, the size of a dinner plate, opening in the plaster. Bloodshot, black iris, unblinking. It looked right at me, and I remembered something I shouldn't have. When I first entered the tunnel, before I emerged into the 1800s, there had been a flicker, a moment where I saw a town split in two, like two dimensions peeling apart. This wasn't the past. This was a parasite, a copy of Harrow's End built from rot and memory. And I was trapped between both versions. The town beneath the town was feeding, the well that screams. My map was useless down here. The streets twisted in ways that made no sense. The sky overhead was a gaping void filled with teeth. I stumbled until I found a courtyard, and in its center, a well. It pulsed and screamed, not a shriek of metal or wind, but a human scream, deep, endless. I felt in my bones, carved into the stone rim. Speak her name, and you replace her. I don't know hers. I don't want to know. But I felt her behind me again. The girl in white. She never walks anymore. She glides. She whispered just one thing this time. You almost belong. The return above. I eventually found a stairwell chiseled from bone and stone. It led up, back toward the surface. But something had changed. The air smelled like ash. The sky was red. The townsfolk were gone. Every window had been boarded shut from the inside. I was alone, and I wasn't in the 1800s anymore. I was somewhere else entirely. A twisted fusion of then and now. The signs were wrong. The clock tower now had 4 faces, each telling a different time. And in the center of the square, where a fountain once stood, was a statue of me, mouth open, screaming. The note I found on the statue read, "You've broken too many rules." She is no longer bound by them. The girl is rewriting Harrow's End, and soon she'll rewrite you. Time is folding. You must choose, up or down, past or present, yourself or her. Asterisk, asterisk. But I can't choose. I don't even remember who I was anymore. Not fully. And tonight, as I sit in the tavern again, alone, the girl stands across the street in the gaslight glow, smiling. I didn't say my name aloud, but she did. She who rewrites the town. Harrow's End isn't just a town anymore. It's a maze of time and memory, a living thing wearing the skin of history. And she, the girl in white, she's not just a ghost. She's the author of this nightmare. I've seen what happens when you break the rules. I've seen what happens when you look too long, speak too loud, or forget who you are. And now, she's offering me a choice. Stay, become part of this place, or leave and forget everything. But forgetting might be the most terrifying option of all. The world outside was still, the kind of stillness that doesn't come from peace, but from something holding its breath, waiting. I watched her from the tavern window. The girl in white. She no longer glided. She hovered, barely touching the cobblestone. Her face flickered every few seconds, becoming someone else. An old woman, a young boy, a faceless thing. But always it returned to her pale, innocent smile. Too wide, too perfect. I whispered my name, just to feel something real. The wind stopped. The sky shuddered, and I heard her voice inside my skull. You want to remember, but remembering will cost you everything. The missing doors. I tried to leave the tavern. The front door was gone. Not boarded. Gone. A blank wall in its place. The windows, blackened with something pulsing like blood beneath skin. I turned to the hallway that led to the back, and it had grown longer, much longer. With each step, the wood beneath my feet aged a century, cracking, groaning, dissolving into dust. The wallpaper melted. The ceiling bowed. At the very end of the hall was a door I'd never seen before. Carved into the center was a phrase I hadn't read before. The author awaits. Enter only if you are unwritten. I didn't know what that meant, but I opened the door anyway. The writing room. The room beyond wasn't part of the tavern. It was something older. A vast library built from bone and wax. Books dripped candlelight, their pages fluttering despite the still air. The shelves pulsed slightly, as if breathing. I walked cautiously, careful not to brush against the books. They whispered when touched. Fragments of memories, lives, and screams. At the center of the room sat a desk, and at the desk, her, the girl in white. But she wasn't a child anymore. She was tall, stretched unnaturally, her limbs thin and splintered like dry branches. Her head tilted, and when she spoke, her mouth didn't move. You want answers, so I'll give you one, but only one. She gestured toward the wall behind her. It was covered in names. Mine was there, carved into stone, fresh and bleeding. Next to it, a title, The Man Who Forgot the Sun. I stepped forward. What does that mean? Her smile widened, and her voice hissed like paper tearing. It means you've already been here, many times, and each time, you forget a little more. Each time, I write a little deeper. But you broke a rule I didn't write. You remembered me. The unwritten. The desk beside her held a single sheet of parchment and a quill made from a human finger. Write your name, she said. I already know it. She shook her head slowly. No, you know a name. Not your name. Not anymore. You've been rewritten, Daniel. That name, Daniel, it sounded hollow in my ears, like it belonged to someone I buried long ago. I looked down at the parchment. It was blank, but when I leaned in, faint lines began to appear. Not ink, scars, as if my name had been cut into it over and over and over again, and healed each time, only to be cut anew. I backed away. I'm not writing anything. The room grew colder. The books began to scream. She stood slowly. Then I will write you instead. The town begins to unravel. I turned and ran. The walls cracked open as I passed, and hands reached out, clawing, grasping. They weren't trying to hurt me. They were trying to remember me. The moment I passed the library's threshold, the town began to unfold. Like a pop-up book losing its spine, each building twisted, rose, then crumbled into ash. The sky peeled open. Stars fell, and through it all, her laughter echoed. She was losing control, because I'd remembered too much, because I hadn't followed the final rule, the last rule. I stumbled back into the town square. My statue was gone. In its place, a massive hole. A well, but not like before. This one led up. A staircase spiraled through the void, leading skyward, higher than the clouds, carved into the stone surrounding the hole. Final rule. If you reach the sky, do not look down. You will see what you were, and you won't survive it. I hesitated. Behind me, the town howled. She was coming. I stepped onto the first stair. The climb. It felt like climbing through time. Each step tugged at my mind, unraveling threads. Memories I didn't recognize flashed before me. A family, a war, a tunnel sealed by bricks, a hand pulling me from rubble. My hands were older, my voice deeper. I'd been here before, so many times. Each time I climbed, each time I looked back, and each time I fell. But not this time. I closed my eyes and kept climbing. The sky, at the top of the stairs, was a vast, endless blue. Not a normal sky, but a canvas, an unfinished painting, clouds frozen mid-motion, sunlight caught in brushstrokes. A single door stood in the middle of it all, painted white, dripping red. I stepped forward and placed my hand on the knob, and for the first time, I remembered everything. I wasn't just Daniel. I was one of many, one of the first to discover the tunnel. I'd stumbled into it decades ago, during a demolition in the modern world. I'd found Harrow's End and the girl in white when she was still forming, still learning. I tried to help her, try to free the others she consumed, but the rules hadn't been made yet. And in trying to save her, I'd written the first one. Don't speak her name, because I knew it, and I knew what it would do. The door before me creaked open. Beyond it, I saw a mirror. My reflection, aging, cracked, stitched together from stories. And behind me in the reflection, she stood, closer than I thought, whispering the name I had once buried deep in the stone. My true name, the name she had stolen, the name beneath the earth. I made it to the door in the sky, the final threshold between the truth and whatever she's become. But truth isn't what I expected. My name, my real name, is older than the town, older than the tunnel, and the girl in white. She isn't haunting Harrow's End. She is Harrow's End. I finally remember everything. But remembering doesn't mean escape. Not unless I finish what I started and break every rule she wrote in blood. The door groaned as it opened. Wind tore through the sky like it was paper, and I stepped into the void beyond. But it wasn't nothingness. It was memory. Living, pulsing, burning memory. A long corridor stretched before me, lined with mirrors. Each one reflected a different version of me. Soldier, miner, child, old man, one with no face, one screaming forever, one wearing her white dress. I try not to look, but they all spoke at once. You buried it. You made her. She was never meant to exist. I kept walking, even as the corridor warped around me. Walls turning into flesh, floor into ash, ceiling into a sky that bled like a wound. At the end stood a stone altar, and on it, a book, bound in skin, sealed with 7 nails. The cover was blank, but I knew it was hers. The source of the rules, the first and last thing ever written in Harrow's End. The Book of Rules. I reached for the book. The moment my fingers touched it, my mind fractured. Not shattered, fractured, like glass under slow, grinding pressure. I saw her life, her origin. Not a ghost, not a demon, not even a girl, but an idea, a forgotten story abandoned by its writer, and left in a town that never got to finish its tale. She had been born from neglect, from imagination left to rot, a character no one wanted, and so she rewrote herself, using others, using us. Each person who entered the tunnel gave her new material, a new plot, a new tragedy, a new rule, and I had been the first. I had tried to destroy the tunnel, to seal the town, but I failed, and she remembered, the memory of fire. Suddenly, I was back at the beginning, the day we found the tunnel during demolition in the present-day city. Back when it was just concrete and forgotten rails. Back when I still wore my real face. We found the first sign carved into the wall. All tunnels lead backward. We joked about it, until the lights went out, until we started vanishing one by one, until I saw her, and whispered her name, her real name, the name that shouldn't exist in the mouth of the living. Alida. The moment I said it, fire erupted. The tunnel collapsed, but she survived, and so did I, with no memory of her name. The final rule, burn the book. Back in the Sky Temple, my hands gripped the book tighter. The final rule hadn't been written in it yet. It waited for me. One nail loosened, then another. The mirrors began to scream. My reflections bled and burned, and her voice, soft and venomous, echoed behind me. Don't you want to stay this time? We could write together. I turned slowly. She was no longer a child. She was a mass of limbs and faces. 1,000 versions of the people she consumed, all stitched into a shape barely human. At its center, her face. Calm, smiling, hopeful. "Please," she whispered. "I'm lonely." She took a step forward, and I remembered. The name, spoken again. I looked her dead in the eyes, and I said her name. Alida. Her body froze, cracked. The stitched faces screamed and melted. She staggered, shrieking. "No, no, you were never supposed to remember." But I did. Every version of me, every life I'd lived and forgotten, stood behind me now. My reflections, my other selves. And we all spoke as one. We write the ending. I ripped the last nail from the book, opened it, tore out the final page, and wrote the last rule. Burn the story. In the loop. I dropped the page to the floor. It burst in a blue flame. Heroes Yendi Col cell. The sky screamed. The town twisted violently, breaking into jagged fragments. Time itself began to collapse, spinning backward, until trees ungrew, buildings unbuilt, voices unspoke. And in the center of it all, she burned. Her smile turned to ash. Her voice cracked and sputtered, then vanished altogether. Her stitched body unfurled like paper curling in a bonfire. And with her, the rules died too. The exit. I woke in the tunnel, back in the present day. My clothes were dusty, torn, my hands blackened with soot. No one around. The tracks rusted, broken. No signs, no town, no door. Just the wind whispering through darkness. But I remembered everything. I staggered out of the tunnel, sunlight stabbing my eyes. Modern buildings loomed overhead. Cars passed in the distance. Life moved on. I checked my pocket. The last nail remained. A reminder, a warning, a keepsake from the story I ended. The forgotten author. A week later, I returned. The demolition site had been filled in. Concrete sealed the entrance. No one remembered the tunnel. No one remembered the people who disappeared inside, except me, because I had written the last rule. And with it, I'd buried her forever. Or so I thought. Until this morning, when I found a slip of paper on my nightstand, written in perfect script. 5 words. The story never really ends. And beneath it, the rules began again. The end.